encoder.
Okay, we have a break.
We can have, if you like, about halfway through.
Yes.
Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth
Can I do that right now?
equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce, the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me today is going to be Nancy Restar. And she's recently had a new book come out, starring, pardon me, folks, Star Ancestors, Indian Wisdom Keepers share their teachings of the extraterrestrials. And we're going to talk about this today a little bit more in depth. So, Nancy, we're on the air live now.
All right.
How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I just got a beautiful gift from one of my readers, so that was very nice.
Ah, okay. It's always nice to get a gift from your readers.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful gift.
I bet that's unusual, though, isn't it?
Huh?
Isn't that a little unusual to get a gift from a reader?
Well, she ordered all six of my books.
Oh, you have 6 books.
Yeah. And
okay.
so...
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so she, you have people who really love the work.
Well, that is true. So, I knew we was going to talk about your more recent book today, Star Ancestors, Wisdom Teachings of the Extraterrestrials, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's a reprinting of my first book, actually.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's a second edition, but it is really like a completely different book because the first one was a coffee table book, quite large, and this one is smaller and it's more accessible for people now with the economy the way it is. So that's very good. I'm happy about it, and it's beautifully done. They just do beautiful work.
It's also a space saver.
Huh?
It's also a space saver.
Yeah, they do just really great work putting books together, I must say.
So, let's talk a little bit about that. Why don't we first get a little icebreaker going on here. Let's see, listeners get to know a little something about you. What was it that got you into, the idea for these books dealing with specifically E.T. and the Native Americans in ancient times versus some of the other topics you might have wanted to cover?
Well, actually, I was working on a historically based fiction book about Henry Hudson and the Mohicans when he went up the Mohicanatuck, which they ended up calling the Hudson River. And it was historically based fiction. I started it while I was a professor at Bard College, visiting professor for a couple of years. And I couldn't get a literary agent. I couldn't get anyone to look at it. And it was actually a really great book, I thought. But I couldn't even get an agent. So I thought, well, I kind of threw it to the wind in the respect of the next opportunity that came up to me while I was in between courses. I was really speculating whether to go teach another course at Bard or not. And I was in Woodstock, New York, and I was approached by a producer from Toronto, Canada, about a huge music event that was fixed to jump off to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the Roswell crash. So I was not a UFO enthusiast, a UFO hunter. I wasn't even involved with the subject at all. I had been involved in that subject when I was younger, a little bit, not professionally, just as an experiencer, but I kind of left that and moved on. So I decided to take up the producers, and I became an associate producer of the 50th anniversary of the Roswell crash, which was going to be held in Roswell. It was set to house about 150,000 people, and we had Sheryl Crow and U2 and Chris Carter. And my job was to gather together all the indigenous ancient astronaut stories from Australia to Peru to North America.
Whoa.
So I started doing that, and I was getting information out of Australia. I was working with actually a woman whose mother was a pretty well-known filmmaker in Australia. So we started, and I was scouting locations. I was going to talk to elders, throughout the Southwest because I was living in Roswell. And then come around spring, I think it was around spring, I can't remember the date of that Heaven's Gate mass suicide, but that operation, that PSYOP operation ended our concert because the sponsors we had, which were Pepsi and Frito-Lay and Budweiser, and they didn't want to be involved in an event where people might drink cyanide to go leave with the UFO people, right? So that was, and that event, do you remember that Heaven's Gate mass suicide?
Oh yeah, that's probably why they wouldn't want to be involved in that.
Yeah, well that event was just a CIA operation.
Oh, was it?
Huh? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, everybody heard about it. It was on the news, but nobody hears it was a CIA,
well,
kind of like a false flag.
Yeah, like a false flag psychological operation, which it was intended and demonstrated the fact that big sponsors will not fund events when there's something around that subject where people are, committing mass suicide. So we lost our sponsors. The event really didn't happen for me at all. I mean, I didn't go to the event, but I think they had a mini event. But it was so fascinating. To me, the information, I thought, well, I'm just going to keep going. I just really want to delve into this subject because it was fascinating. And I did just that, and I ended up getting Ballantine as a publisher and put together, it took me quite a while to put the proposal together with the actual interviews because, I had to go down into South America, Central America to really confirm what I was getting, the readings I was getting from various elders up here. I felt, and the subject was somewhat taboo 12 years ago, It was still not something you talked about because of just everything surrounding the subject, the Madison Avenue and PSYOP and
religion,
abductions and religion, and it was just a whole ball of wax. But so I was able to go into the Yucatan, up into Chiapas, and talk to the Lacandon and talk to the historians for the Yucatan about the Mayan relationship and what kind of contact they had and where it was shown in their artifacts and all of that. And so it just became a great mystery. And I was the only one interviewing indigenous people at that time on the subject,
So all your work and doing all this, is that the reason why you were selected for Ancient Aliens? Because I saw you on that show.
Yeah, I was on, I think, about 6 times. Excuse me, I guess I have another call. I was on there about 6 times. The last time I was on came out the end of April, beginning of May, and that was pretty much, I think, the best for me. But it fell into some of the storyline of things that they were wanting to cover. And I went on, and so did Clifford Mahuti from Zuni.
Now, I missed him, but I know they had a lot of different people on there, and a lot of the people I knew had been on my show before. And I saw you, and I said, I'd like to have her on my show one day. And, well, I just recently got the opportunity.
Ah.
So I was familiar with you.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it started. I started the book, and then I went globally. I did Japan, Islam, Aboriginal Australia, Jerusalem. I tried to cover all the indigenous people around the globe. And then the third book of the series, because it's a trilogy, I came back over to the United States. And during that period, I was working on that third part of the trilogy. I decided to make a documentary because I started to realize people weren't reading books anymore like they used to.
That is true.
It's very hard for people
really
to sit down.
Because I've really read some interesting books on this subject.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I decided, well, people can't handle, people are having a hard time centering themselves, relaxing themselves to the point where they feel like, they can read. Or they can spend time reading. So there's such a sense of urgency about everything, it seems right now, that, reading is not on the forefront of what a lot of people are doing. Now, there are a lot of people who do read. But I decided to make a documentary anyway. And that's what I've been doing for since 2004. Now, I also did some other books on top of it. After Star Ancestors, I went on to interview military intelligence people and people in corporate alignment with aeronautics and intelligence. So that just became a whole nother couple of years worth of research and interviews.
Oh, I can imagine it did.
Yeah, and now I'm just still working on the film. I just filmed Clifford Mahuti, and I'm filming a Kiowa gentleman, and I'm just getting closer to getting finished.
Well, I was going to ask you about this documentary. One of them I was going to ask was, how many have you done?
Well, this
completed.
Is interviews or documentaries?
Documentaries.
Well, this is my first documentary I ever did.
Okay, so...
And, yeah.
Have you completed it?
And I am just completing the interviews this summer because, it's changed over the period of years and the country's changed, the world has changed. But I was invited to premiere it in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil at the Uranium Film Festival because a lot of the message that comes through the ancient astronaut, the ancient peoples, is about the splitting of the atom and the nuclear issue.
So the ancient Native Americans were familiar with the concept?
Oh yeah, but because there's been a lot of contact going on for time immemorial.
Judging from your book, when I read it, I would agree there's been a lot of contact with quite a few Native Americans. And I'm going to get to the book here in just a second, but you were talking about the documentary, so I wanted to kind of focus on that for just a quick minute. And, I wanted to also ask you, can you tell my listeners a little something about the documentary, like what it's about, when's it due to, come out? Will there be a DVD available on the market for those that want to buy one, stuff like that?
Well, the film, once I've got the last couple interviews, which I've already, am doing now, then I have to edit, and that's always not the difficult part necessarily, but financially it is. It's hard to raise money to finishing funds right now. So that's kind of what I'm working with on top of it. I have an editor and, I pretty much do the rough cut. So, there's incredible music, incredible artwork, and the whole ambiance of the film is extremely uplifting. So that's what the film is really about. It's to uplift the subject into a language that people can understand, and also it has a lot of healing power in it. So people love what I almost have 1 million views on YouTube for my films and what I put out. So people really do like it. Getting a distributor in America is almost next to impossible, especially with what's going on in Hollywood. So I'm launching it overseas, and they don't want to hear Indians necessarily speaking historically on mainstream media. They don't. There's a blacklisting, and so to have Indians and UFOs speaking is even more blacklisted.
Really? I would have never thought that. That really surprised me.
Oh, definitely. Oh, they've got an agenda with the information they put out about this subject, and it is leading to an ultimate false flag alien hoax. But the word alien actually comes out of the Tavistock Institute, because London is involved with all of the information on this subject that is allowed to be released. They are the ones that authorize that. So alien is, you break it down, a lean. It's a lean, and basically it's a lean on your mind to think that a more advanced civilization would be worse than us. You know, I mean, look what's going on here. So, you know, people say, oh, ew, they're scary. They do this, they do that, they abduct, they use needles. But if you look at what's going on Earth, I would be reluctant to come here. What a beautiful planet, but look what the people are doing. They're just killing each other. So, you know.
Seems like everywhere you turn,
it works both ways.
For outer space, there's nothing but torture.
Yeah, I mean, why would a more highly advanced race want to come here and look at what's going on? It looks like a dangerous place, doesn't it?
Pretty much. Now,
but it's a beautiful planet, and it is a university, and so we have to learn what we have to learn here, and then move on, hopefully.
Right. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention was that your website's www.nancyredstar.com /content.htm, or you can just put nancyredstar.com, and it'll automatically forward to that exact page. For those that wish to speak to Nancy, ask a question, you can call in at 832-632-7904. And also, if you scroll down below the chat room and below the phone number, you'll see her picture and her show description along with her link. It's hyperlinked, so all you have to do is click on it. You don't have to remember it. And it's got a description of her and the show and what she's doing. And it's got links to at least 2 of her books. At the time I put this description up, I was not aware she had 6 books, but when I get ready to move it to the archive tomorrow, I plan to, tomorrow, the next day, I plan to go to Amazon and try to find links to the rest of her books. Are all of your books available on Amazon?
Yes, Legends is the other one. The 4th one, called Return of the Star Ancestors, that has not come out yet. I want that to coincide with the film. Then Life with the Cosmos Clearance, that was a book I did with a former NRO. Well, he was a Conrad courier for President Eisenhower, and he also was in the Disclosure Project, but more so than that, he had worked for the National Reconnaissance Office. So I did a book with him, and then I went back into the Disclosure Project, trying to avoid the influence of the government in that project, because that project really was put together by the Clintons and the Rockefellers.
Really?
That's who funded that project in the beginning, yeah. I just got the Freedom of Information documents on that and the pictures of Lawrence with Hillary. Yeah, and the whole board of directors. It's everybody who's involved in that, which was basically went nowhere, except for it went a lot of places to convince people that these extraterrestrials do exist. But the way the campaign was created was really a media event. That's really all it turned out to be. And I remember I used to talk to he was a lieutenant colonel, Charlie Brown. He was in charge of the Grudge Project. I'm not sure if he's still alive, because a lot of these gentlemen have moved on.
Oh, yeah. Edward Rupert has passed on, and God knows many more.
My cousin is Don Phillips, who designed the U-2 spy plane. He was Cherokee and Parker and Phillips. And he was part Cherokee and he was Scottish, but he was out at Groom Lake Air Facility around, in the very, very beginning, because he worked for Kelly Johnson, Lockheed Skunk Works. So he's in the book. And, I interviewed Jim Mars, and it's a 2-part book. I self-published it.
How did you manage to reach Jim Mars?
Well, I did a conference with him in Laughlin, so I had his contact information.
He's got a contact link on his website, but I've sent 2 or 3 emails, and I don't know if my email's bouncing or if his email is full or what, but I never hear back from him.
Have you tried to get a hold of him through where he teaches?
Oh, he teaches?
Yeah, I think he teaches at a university in Texas.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I have his. I've got his new phone number. He has another phone number that he changed his number. I'll have to look, see if I can find it for you.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Coming back to the book, well, actually, we're about 20 minutes into this. I was going to, in about 10 minutes, ask you if you want to take a break, but that means I'll get into the book and then interrupt what we're talking about the book in about 10 minutes. We just go ahead and just take a break now instead of in 9 minutes?
Sure, if you want to do that. How long is the break?
I would say I have to give a look at my music that I use for the break here. It says here it's 3 minutes and 39 seconds.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and start that music and put the microphone on mute so that, I won't accidentally be talking in the background here.
Okay.
And I will be back in about 3 minutes and 39 seconds.
Okay, I'll see you then.
Okay, thank you. Okay, everybody. We're back from break now. And as I said before we went on break, we're fixing to go ahead and start talking about her book, which was the original reason why we had the interview set up, but she had so much interesting things going on that I wanted to make sure y'all got to hear about that too. Now, Nancy, I've read your book, the one that I did mention that I did know about that I got a link to. Actually, I got a link to two of them. And one of the questions that came to my mind while I was reading it was, what is exactly the corn pollen prayer, and what's its significance? Because when the people in the book you talked to have mentioned it, it seems like it's important that you go back to doing this like they used to do it for some reason now in the end times.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the theme, people say, well, what was the theme of your book, Star Ancestors? Well, one of the themes of the book was the seeds, to hold on to the heirloom open pollinated seeds. And when you talk about corn pollen, you're talking about genetically modified corn. You can't get corn pollen from genetically modified corn. And corn is a very special, for the Salichi, for Cherokee too, Selu is the deity who represents the corn. And it's a very important thing because not only is it edible for your own sustenance, you can also pray with corn. It's used in many prayers. And that's true in South America, Central America as well. Corn is almost a language amongst indigenous people. So that corn pollen is only gathered at a very special time in the development of the corn, and also at the time of the pre-dawn. It falls like early hours of the morning, and I have never collected it myself. It takes some time to really know, what you're doing with it, but the elders that I went to did know how to collect it, it was their own corn. Of course, they were collecting it from their own farming. So, not that I do have a farm myself, but I haven't been growing corn.
Right.
So I usually go to the Dene. I always get my corn pollen from the grandmothers down at the Navajo flea market.
Yeah, I think when I was reading the book, I noticed that one of the elders you were speaking to actually put some of this corn in your hand, didn't he?
Well, that was a woman, yeah. It was Harriet Goodluck, and she showed me how it's gathered, and she explained to me how she prays with it, and it's all in the book.
Right.
She explains where it goes from your finger with the corn pollen on it, to your tongue, to in between your eye where your pineal gland is, and then on top of your crown. And she does that. I think I explained that in the book.
So could you tell us perhaps what purpose exactly this serves to do this part of the ritual in the prayer?
Well, I'm not Dene, and although I use corn pollen myself for very special prayers and rituals that are done either by myself or with somebody else with the corn pollen that I have, but it is an offering to the Creator. It should be done almost on a daily basis, where you embrace the four directions and you do the corn pollen prayer.
Right. So it's got a lot of symbolic meaning too, then.
Yeah. People don't really understand how difficult the Indian laws are, and the way things are done, and how long the preparation time is. It's very strict and very hard. And I think that's why so many people, Indian people, get really upset when other people are doing their ceremonies, because it takes years and years and years to
get it right.
To get it right, and you have to earn it, You just don't pick up a pipe and go here and take all at Sweat Lodge and do this. And, you're born into it, or you were chosen by the Creator for it, and then, you have to apprentice with another person for years and years before you can assist anyone else, or even if you're going to be able to assist anyone else, if you're going to pass through your initiation. So,
pardon me. I'm sorry, I got a little frog in my throat there that caught me all
yeah.
Now,
so it is a very very long process, not to be taken lightly, and it's kept close to the heart, so that it is preserved in its purity and intention,
Okay. One of the other things I noticed was there's sky elders, little people, and star ancestors. Are these like separate extraterrestrial races, or different names for the same race?
It's pretty much different. It's different names for the same race or civilizations.
Okay, so like different people, like the Hopi might call them sky elders, and the Cherokee might call them little people. And I'm probably not exact with that, but I'm just giving an example.
Yes, you're right. And they appear to different peoples and different clan systems as different types of beings.
Okay.
So they may appear to a Maya different than a Cherokee or different to a Hopi.
All right. Now, one of the other questions I was going to ask you, and this here, I don't think, if I remember correctly, was quite covered in your book. However, being an Indian, I've done a little research into, part Indian, my tribe, the Cherokee. But I know that the white man come over and took the Cherokee on the Trail of Tears, and I know that what the white man's done to the Indian general, that's pretty much a historical fact. But one thing that's not really historical fact is was the white men converting all the tribes to Christianity like they did the Maya, or just certain ones, or?
Oh, they've got all of the what I call charismatic type religions. You've got Jehovah's Witness, and you've got Mormonism, and this was is a tool that's been used to decrease the power of the actual ceremonies and rituals and people themselves, bringing them into the church.
Right. Which all of those branches you mentioned are all different denominations of the same thing, which is Christianity, a very multifaceted diamond in itself, you might say.
Yeah, it's caused a lot of problems, but that's partly why they did it,
Yeah, well, I've broken away from religion altogether, and I'm more into spirituality now myself. I think it's a better path to take.
A lot of people are that way now. Well, the church has proven itself to be not trustworthy.
Right.
So.
Now, also I read in your book about some tribes having traditions about a red star planet, and I was wondering how many tribes had these kind of traditions.
Well, I think that's from an interview with an elder, Molly Massaticus Keating, and she's talking about the Apache being connected to a red star, which she was thinking might be Mars in that interview.
That's what I was thinking.
But she also said that almost every tribe, almost every group of Indian people come from the stars, say they come from the stars. So it's admitted, itself within the people, from the people. Like Anishinaabe means man who came down from the stars, or Iroquois, the woman who fell from the sky. You see it in the names of the peoples.
Oh, okay, yeah, and I believe your book mentioned that too. At one point, I remember seeing something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know that it's not just the Native Americans who have this here tradition. There's other people that and other cultures. I want to say Egypt, but I might be wrong. It might be another one I'm thinking of. Tells us that we came from Lyra. I know that's attached to the Atlantis theory.
Right. I don't know too much about Lyra.
Oh, it's Lyra. I thought it was Lyra. I've been pronouncing it wrong. Who knows how long?
Yeah, I think it's pronounced Lyra. But I don't know too much about that. Daniel Salter used to talk about that quite a bit, but I see us coming from the Milky Way, the Pleiades. That's our home. I mean, that's what you see on the maps and the Hyde maps, and I believe that's probably, we're closer to that then, and I'm not sure where Lyra is. It might be in that. I'll have to look at the star system to see where it's placed. It might be in that Seven Sisters, they call them.
Yeah.
There's 7 of them, and the women are the 7. Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I had Christine Day on a year or two ago, and she has a book out that talks about the Pleiades, and, you know, she's been channeling with them and had quite a, you know, bit of information on that. And I think it can make a lot of sense, but there's also theories about Sirius, and I propose that maybe there's another possibility that maybe some people might have come from Lyra, some from Sirius, some from, you know, Pleiades, in different places, might even account for the different races.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just a possibility to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also, one of the things you mentioned in the book was tetrahedral geometry. What can you tell us about that?
Oh, you're talking about the tetrahedron?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a drawing I did of Avery Hill and Sudbury. That was part of that interview with Molly Massatakis where she was talking about Richard Hoagland placing a vinyl overlay over the monolithic monuments on Mars and then laying that overlay right over on top of Avery and Silbury, and they match perfectly. They fit completely perfectly together. So that what he's saying is they're all related. The monolithic structures are like related to ourselves.
Yeah, I knew that. I read something before about tetrahedral and tetragramman. I think the tetragramman was supposed to have been the original name for God, is what I read on some websites. And I thought the two were connected.
That's pretty complicated, but if you look at Richard Hoagland's address in the United Nations, he talks about it there, the 19.5 degrees that appears in many monolithic structures on and off the planet.
Okay. Now, I know I read an article on his website that deals with the fact that many planets have got this, or at least I know one of the planets he mentioned before, he had a picture of a great big tetrahedron at the very top of the North Pole that he mentioned, and he had a big, long, article about it that I thought was fascinating, but, I mean, it's been like years since I read it. Now, tell us about Thomas Ben Yaka and his prophecy.
Well, I can't really speak too much on Thomas Ben Yaka because the Hopi prophecy is for the Hopi to talk on. And I don't really, I don't really interpret, only thing that I will touch is things that were talked about in the book. But as far as Thomas Ben Yaka is concerned, if he's not in Star Ancestor, I don't know if he's in there.
Yeah, I think he was in there. I'm pretty sure he was. That's, I think, where I read it.
Yeah, I think it was a brief, description that Molly was talking about this gathering at the UN.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
But it caught my eye.
Well, it wasn't just the Hopi elders, though. There were other elders from other nations that went to deliver the prophecy, and they had been knocking on the United Nations door for 42 years before they let them in. So that just tells you a little bit about the country we live in.
Right. Well, we know about the country we live in. It's pretty, we're conquistadors.
Exactly. So, that was it. It took them 42 years. They delivered the prophecy, and now we're seeing everything fulfilled. The third great shaking, World War III, has been in the works, And, they talk about the earthquakes, but it's a very, very severe earthquake that, changes the geography of America.
Oh, wow. That sounds kind of scary.
You really have to read that chapter. Actually, you have to go on a little farther to Paul Duarte, who's Olmec in German. His mother is an Olmec Indian from Mexico, and the father's German. And he talks quite a bit about because he spent time with the Hopi, he could really do that, because I have not. And so, and also it's not considered really respectful to deliver other clans' prophecy unless it's coming through an interview, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So in that interview that Paul talked about quite a bit about some of what the prophecy talks about, which is worth reading. But it does, I have heard the Hopi elders, two of them, many years ago, went on the Art Bell show before he was kicked out of there. And they delivered the prophecy. They wouldn't even give their name because they were afraid of being threatened, because the Hopi Tribal Council is Mormon now. So the elders who are living that prophecy, most of them are all gone. But other people who are following that particular prophecy, on the radio, these two elders from Hopi speaking in their language and being translated said that there was going to be a horseshoe earthquake that was going to come like from the top of Oregon, up in that area near Alaska, all the way down, cut through the southwest, and then go all the way up the east coast. And it was going to literally, along the lines of kind of what Edgar Cayce shows in his map.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I'm in Houston, Texas, then. It sounds like it'll miss me.
Is that where you are? You're in Houston?
Yeah. So I'll probably get a different catastrophe.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you will. You're going to have an energy catastrophe. I hear there's some problems over there with energy.
Yeah. Well, I also wanted to ask you that, because I think I read something about this in your book, that according to the Hopi, there's been different worlds here before. You got any idea how many different worlds we've had here?
Well, again, it's not just the Hopi. There are the Lakota also have come through other worlds, and the Pueblo too, and even the Cherokee have talked about different worlds. So, yes, and the Maya, they call it the fifth fire. So we're moving into the fifth fire. We're in the fourth fire, moving into the fifth fire.
So by different world, what we're really referring to here is kind of like the 26,000 year period where the pole shift happens and the planet as we know it reworks itself, gets destroyed, and a new, everything starts off again, or are we talking about?
That isn't really, that's sort of a Madison Avenue thing. They've created a lot of movies about 2012 and the Maya prophecy. That is one calendar, only one. And not only that, for instance, the woman I interviewed who was a calendarist was Guatemala. That's different. There are up to, I don't know how many different calendars over in the Yucatan and Chiapas, up to 36 calendars. So when I interviewed the Mayan Guatemalan calendarist, she wouldn't tell me she wouldn't interpret the last 4 calendars in this, beyond 2012, because she said they were too sacred to be spoken of. So when they interpret that calendar, the 2012, it really has to do with the sun and Venus, the Venus transit, the sunspots, the sun exploding the way it is, and then that's creating Earth and climate changes. And it's more about that than it is, it's certainly not the end of the world. But we speak that we emerge from inside of the Earth 4 times before this next fifth world, where we probably will have to go inside of the Earth at some point. Okay,
that makes a lot of sense. Also, it lines up with an article I read online on Yahoo News once about somebody said that they had found another more Mayan text that indicated that wasn't meant to be the end, that there were more calendars made and stored in a different place, in other words, which is kind of like what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, when they put out the Mayan calendar, everybody who writes books and everybody who gets on and does films, and they're not Maya.
Well, that's true.
So, number one, you're not getting your information from the source. You really need to get the information from the Maya, and they were very upset and very disturbed by the type of publicity that particular calendar that particular cycle was getting, because it was untrue.
Right. Also, in your book, you mentioned that a Hopi legend that tells of the destruction of Atlantis. That led me to wonder, are the Hopi by any chance survivors of Atlantis?
Well, again, that was not me talking about it. It was someone I was interviewing, and she's talking about how the people were rescued from Atlantis. See, the inside of the Earth is inhabitable, and there's 2 holes on either end. I mean, you can look at NASA photographs, which they don't really, if you can find them, because there's a hole at either end of the poles. So the inside of the Earth is inhabited. And so what she's talking about is at the time of Atlantis, how people were rescued.
Okay. And, you mentioned a very good point there. Every one of these questions I ask you regarding the book, your book is really a collection of interviews you've done with various elders and various other, Indians or Native Americans, should I say, that which we realize that's not like you have the actual knowledge yourself, but you have what you've talked to them about, in other words.
Yes. I was kind of delivering the mail.
Right.
With the mailbag full.
Yeah, actually, that book's plumb full of mail. I'd give you that one.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. I had no idea. Like I said, I didn't know what I was doing necessarily. I just knew that I had a mission to fulfill, and that meant talking to elders, people that I could find who were willing to talk about this subject at that time, because that was quite a few years ago when I started this. And there's a lot more Indians maybe on the circuit, more you could say, on the conference circuit than there were then. But the people who really had the knowledge and didn't sell it and do the circuit and all of that, they've all gone. And most of them would never go out and do those kind of, they weren't professional speakers, But they had all the information.
Right. And of course, in your book, you only got so much room for, so much of the information. And some of this stuff, I did kind of take the assumption that you perhaps had talked to them about some of these subjects a little more in depth than what you had the room to write in the book, in other words.
Well, there's just so much, you want, there's just so much you can fit in a book. And then you have to deal with editors. So, chapters that were longer became shorter, because you have to do that.
Right.
But yeah. I think it's very, there's no sugarcoating in that book. I mean, if anything's sugar-coated, it could be my free prose. But other than that, it's straight from their mind and thought to paper. And I did everything by longhand. I didn't want to pass this information through the wires at that time. I was told just to do it all, transcribe it all by hand, and write it all by hand, which is what I did for the first couple books. I did everything longhand.
Yeah, I think you even mentioned that in the book itself.
Yeah, just because of the nature of the information and then the warnings that came through about the wires. With the smart meters and the wires, now we've got dirty electricity in our house.
Right.
So they were right about the wires. I mean, I've unplugged a lot of my wires since I found out I had a smart meter on my house, which when they put it on, they didn't tell me it was digital. And, that's
all the new smart meters are digital.
They're bad. Mm-hmm. They've got electromagnetic frequencies, much more so than what we had with an analog.
Yeah, everything's going digital, though.
Yeah.
Okay, now, also, I was wondering if you could tell us anything about time travel and time travelers.
Well, I don't know what do you mean? That's a broad subject.
Yeah, it really is, but I think it was mentioned that, in the book, if I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and double check it, that I think one of the tribes in there had mentioned time travel and time travelers, like there had been visitation before, or did I misunderstand that, or am I getting that from somewhere else and putting it in here?
Well, I mean, it is part of, well, put it this way, part of the transformation that humanity is going through, those that are awake, is it really has to do with that chakra system and the awakening of that pineal, reawakening of the pineal system, which unfortunately, when they put fluoride in the water, it coagulates in your pineal gland. So people have to work at taking medicines that will empty that out, and because it gets hard like a cuticle. And that's one of the things that drinking clay does, drinking various types of clay, and also elemental gold. It repairs the pineal gland and the DNA. So there are things that people need to do in order to go through this transformation, because it requires a certain frequency and a certain behavior. To go into the next world won't be like this one.
Right.
I can't say what it'll be like, but it's going to be completely different. And we're in that process of going there. So we can see everything falling away, what we thought as lifetime structures just completely dissolving. And
like the Great Pyramid.
Well, not so much like the Great Pyramid, but everything that we know in the material, in the fourth dimensional reality or third dimensional reality that we have been living in is changing. Everything we thought was going to be there for us is not there. Something else is going to be taking its place, and we have to really build that next world, at least even in our minds. You can't go into the next world with an M16. It isn't about that. That's what my feeling is.
Yeah, and you know what? Further down the road this month, I'm going to have a guest come on my show called Neil Kramer, and he's got a book out called The Unfoldment, and he talks about this here fourth dimension quite a bit in his book, and I really hadn't planned on mentioning him during this show, but since you did mention the fourth dimension, I thought it was a good time to, kind of add that in there that, there's somebody else out there that's on a similar wavelength, in other words. Yeah,
so we're being prepared. I mean, this is about our evolution. It's not just a Mayan calendar cycle. This is about our evolution as a species.
And it's not just a Native American belief or, Hopi belief or something like that. I mean, this is something that's been around in many different cultures around the world.
Yes, that's true. That's why I really wanted to broaden it by going and interviewing Tibet and Japan, and to see their prophecy and their time of unfolding is the similarities, and they're just the same but coming through different cultures and different forms of words.
Okay. Now, I was noticing we've got like 7 minutes left, and I wanted to give us a little bit of time before we got out of here for you to, let us know of anything that I may not have thought to cover that you'd like my listeners to know about.
Well, I just think that what people are dealing with is a great amount of extraneous stimulation. Some of it is created en masse, and some of it is arbitrary. And that to realize that a lot of the drama and the crisis that we're experiencing is theater that's been created for an agenda that has nothing to do with the agenda, has nothing to do with the evolution that I'm speaking of. Because if you're looking at wars and you're looking at fear and you're looking at violence, well, you're looking at a system of governing people, meaning that keeping the war machine going is a standard of living. It's an actual lifestyle that has been created around us. And that sometimes it's often, I'd say 80% of the time, it's completely manipulated. Actors, stories created that look real to the mainstream. but a lot of them are just theater. And that just perpetuates and continues the fear. And so we can't go into the next world with that hatred and racial and war and fear. It's not going to be about that. So people will be misguided if they continue to stay plugged into the feeding of information, which is disinformation. So, basically the reason I wrote Star Ancestors was to try to clarify the boogeyman theme, that has been put forth to people about a more highly advanced race.
Yeah, because there's a lot of negative material out there about ET and,
on the abductions and the mutilation. They don't even do that. That's done by the United States government. And that particular area where that happened is called the war zone in the intelligence business, because that's where they test out all their superconductors. So the plasma and laser rays that they, weaponry that they ended up using in Iraq was tested up in that area first, where the cows are.
One of the interesting things about that is it's usually the Greys that are being accused of doing this, and one of the things that's been noted on this by several people that I've interviewed that I know, Nigel Kerner, Daryl Sims, and Richard Dolan, and others, is that they have no genitals, and this has led many people to believe that these are actually androids.
Well, they're reconnaissance. They're on reconnaissance. They're biological entities created by a more highly evolved race to do. They don't need these beings don't need a craft to come here. They're already here, and they don't need to come and go in a craft. And most of the craft that we see is our own or other government. So that isn't how they traverse the universe, but I believe that entity may be a biological entity created to do reconnaissance.
Well, that's a possibility. We have no real idea yet where technology and, nature meet at, and other races might.
Yeah.
Okay, now, real quick, in the time we got remaining, can you, give us any last-minute thoughts you might have?
Well, I just think, I had put something up the other day that when I interviewed Clifford Mahuti, something that he said, which I want to just read here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just take me a minute to get to it. Let's see, it's right over here. I have a weekly Clifford Mahuti update on my Facebook page. And, okay, so this is from Clifford. The entire planet is going to go through a split, spiritually, politically, economically, personally, and physically. The Earth will split geologically. A rift will occur, resulting in an entire imbalance of life. Stop, look, and listen. We have deviated from the natural and cosmic laws. So that's what people need to do. They need to stop, look, and listen, and find out about the natural and cosmic laws, and be aware that everything is splitting apart.
All righty. And I think that you got an excellent point on that one. I mean, God knows we've been destroying everything ourselves for, hundreds of years. I would say thousands, but the real damage didn't really start until, we came over here and founded America, I don't think.
Pardon?
I was talking about what you was mentioning there, in other words, about the damage that's being done and how we need to be, paying attention to cosmic laws and things, because, part of the damage that we're doing is by breaking these cosmic laws.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Yes. Well, I tell you what, it shows that we're out of time now. But, Nancy, I've had a great time, and I'd love to have you come back, especially
I'd love to.
When your video comes out. You got my email, stay in touch and, keep me posted, and I'll try to stay in touch with you.
Yes, and would you do me a favor? Could you send me a link to your radio show? Because I can't find it on my emails. That way I can have a link to the interview.
Okay, I will most definitely do that. And in fact, I thought I'd already sent one. I usually do. And I'll be sending you a link to where I got it posted in the archive, as well as where I posted it in YouTube.
Oh, thank you.
And Dead in Motion, because this is going to be turned into a video before I post it.
Yeah, okay. Oh, you're going to put it on YouTube?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to take your picture, my picture, and the book cover and add them all to my video maker and add the show to that, and then I'm going to combine them, and it's going to be like a video in the end.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's what a lot of people do.
I'll send you a link to that when I get it up. It might be a couple of days.
Okie doke. Thank you very much, and I really enjoyed meeting you.
I enjoyed meeting you, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, Royce.
You have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hello?
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I heard you disconnect, so I didn't disconnect. Let me get that.
Oh, I was trying to disconnect. Okay.
All right, I got it.
All right.
Okay. Now, everybody, real quick, before I shut the show down altogether, I'd like to make mention to everyone that, as y'all already know, I was down with my voice being missing for several days, a little over a week or two. And I'm back up now for as long as I last, with the weather being what it is. And I went ahead and posted all my shows for August down below the chat room here for anybody that wants to be kept up to date on it. Tomorrow I'll have my regular Tuesday show, Behind the Cosmic Veil, with Thomas Fusco. And that, I think, is a very promising interview. And then Saturday I'm going to be talking about Forgotten Worlds with Patrick Chouinard, and I might be pronouncing his name wrong. And then I'm going to have further down the road in August on the 11th, which happens to be the day before my birthday, From the Bodies of the Gods, Part 2. And this man was on my show a month or so ago, was a great guest, but we ran out of time. And once again, Gordon Johnny Noto is going to be coming back, and this time he's going to be talking about moon anomalies, and that's going to be on August the 13th. And I want to say that's at 8 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. No, it's at 1 p.m. It's going to be a day show. And I'm going to have The Disappearance of the Universe with Gary R. Renard, August 14th, and that seems to be promising. The Big Book of Reincarnation, Saturday, August the 18th, with Roy Stimmen. And then The Unfoldment with Neil Kramer on Tuesday, August 21st at 8 p.m. And then Gordon Johnny Noto will be coming back one more time. And I put on here he's going to be talking about Planet X News, but he seems to change his topic at the last minute, so we may have something, because he has new things come up all the time, and we may go with something new as it comes up. And then we got AD, After Disclosure, with Richard Dorland. And I would have liked to have gotten his co-author, Bryce Zabel, but I didn't hear back from him. I don't know if my email bounced or not, or, what happened. But at any rate, I did get Richard Dolan, and this is a very fascinating book. I'm working on it now. It's going to be Tuesday, August 28th at 1 p.m. Why would I schedule a show for Tuesday? That may be an 8 p.m., and I might have just marked it on here wrong, because the 28th is a Tuesday. I may have just forgot to change it when I copied and pasted it. So count on that for an 8, because I really think it is. So we got a lot of things coming up in August. You can scroll down. You can read all the descriptions. You can see their pictures, links to their books if you like them, and what have you. And as usual, these will be archived at YouTube as well as here at Paranormal Palace Radio. Don't forget about visiting World UFO Day. It's already past us, but they still get that website, and it's going to come around again next year. Don't forget to click on the friends links and visit the other sites there. Once again, alien and UFO community site is still down, and I may have to take that banner off since it don't seem like it's coming back. Supernatural UFO is a forum. They're still up and they're going strong. And United Paranormal International is still up and going strong. And I really recommend both of those sites. And don't forget to visit my friends at UKPN Radio, Gary Brown, Jim Harold, author of True Ghost Stories, Around the Campfire, The Gralien Report, Micah Hanks, and Mark Snyder with Ohio Politics Radio. They're great shows. I think if you enjoy radio, you would enjoy going to these shows. And don't forget to spread the word about Paranormal Palace Radio. Let people know about us. I've still got 6 books to go to catch up between now and October. As soon as I do, I've thought of some changes I want to make to the website that might make navigation a little bit easier, help you find the where to sign up for membership, and help you find where the other information's at in the archives, etc. But that may not be until sometime in September before I get that done. In the meantime, folks, I'm going to call this a wrap, and I hope to see everybody here tomorrow night at 8. Thank you very much, and y'all have a good day.
Mother was a pretty well-known filmmaker in Australia, so we started, and I was scouting locations. I was going to talk to elders, throughout the Southwest because I was living in Roswell. And then come around spring, I think it was around spring, I can't remember the date of that Heaven's Gate mass suicide, but that operation, that PSYOP operation ended our concert because the sponsors we had, which were Pepsi and Frito-Lay and Budweiser, and they didn't want to be involved in an event where people might drink cyanide to go leave with the UFO people, right? So that was, and that event, do you remember that Heaven's Gate mass suicide?
Oh yeah, that's probably why they wouldn't want to be involved in that.
Yeah, well that event was just a CIA operation.
Oh, was it?
Huh? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, everybody heard about it. It was on the news, but nobody hears it was a CIA,
well,
kind of like a false
flag. Yeah, like a false flag psychological operation, which it was intended and demonstrated the fact that big sponsors will not fund events when there's something around that subject where people are, committing mass suicide. So we lost our sponsors. The event really didn't happen for me at all. I mean, I didn't go to the event, but I think they had a mini event, but it was so fascinating. But I kind of threw it to the wind in the respect of the next opportunity that came up to me while I was in between courses. I was really speculating whether to go teach another course at Bard or not. And I was in Woodstock, New York, and I was approached by a producer from Toronto, Canada, about a huge music event that was fixed to jump off to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the Roswell crash. So I was not a UFO enthusiast, a UFO hunter. I wasn't even involved with the subject at all. I had been involved in that subject when I was younger, a little bit, not professionally, just as an experiencer. But I kind of left that and moved on. So I decided to take up the producers, and I became an associate producer of the 50th anniversary of the Roswell crash, which was going to be held in Roswell. It was set to house about 150,000 people, and we had Sheryl Crow and U2 and Chris Carter. And my job was to gather together all the indigenous ancient astronaut stories from Australia to Peru to North America.
Whoa.
So I started doing that, and I was getting information out of Australia. I was working with actually a woman who's
encoder.
Okay, we have a break.
We can have, if you like, about halfway through.
Yes.
Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth
Can I do that right now?
equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce, the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me today is going to be Nancy Restar. And she's recently had a new book come out, starring, pardon me, folks, Star Ancestors, Indian Wisdom Keepers share their teachings of the extraterrestrials. And we're going to talk about this today a little bit more in depth. So, Nancy, we're on the air live now.
All right.
How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I've just got a beautiful gift from one of my readers, so that was very nice.
Ah, okay. It's always nice to get a gift from your readers.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful gift.
I bet that's unusual, though, isn't it?
Huh?
Isn't that a little unusual to get a gift from a reader?
Well, she ordered all six of my books.
Oh, you have 6 books.
Yeah. And
okay.
so...
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so you have people who really love the work.
Well, that is true. So, I knew we was going to talk about your more recent book today, Star Ancestors, Wisdom Teachings of the...
To me, the information, I thought, well, I'm just going to keep going. I just really want to delve into this subject because it was fascinating. And I did just that, and I ended up getting Ballantine as a publisher and put together, it took me quite a while to put the proposal together with the actual interviews because, I had to go down into South America, Central America, to really confirm what I was getting, the readings I was getting from various elders up here. I felt, and the subject was somewhat taboo 12 years ago, It was still not something you talked about because of just everything surrounding the subject, the Madison Avenue and PSYOP and
religion,
abductions and religion, and it was just a whole ball of wax. But so I was able to go into the Yucatan, up into Chiapas, and talk to the Lacandon and talk to the historians for the Yucatan about the Mayan relationship and what kind of contact they had and where it was shown in their artifacts and all of that. And so it just became a great mystery. And I was the only one interviewing indigenous people at that time on the subject,
So all your work and doing all this, is that the reason why you were selected for Ancient Aliens? Because I saw you on that show.
Yeah, I was on, I think, about 6 times. Excuse me, I guess I have another call. I was on there about 6 times. The last time I was on...
Extraterrestrials, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's a reprinting of my first book, actually.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's a second edition, but it is really like a completely different book because the first one was a coffee table book, quite large, and this one is smaller and it's more accessible for people now with the economy the way it is. So that's very good. I'm happy about it, and it's beautifully done. They just do beautiful work.
It's also a space saver.
Huh?
It's also a space saver.
Yeah, they do just really great work putting books together, I must say.
So, let's talk a little bit about that. Why don't we first get a little icebreaker going on here. Let's see, listeners get to know a little something about you. What was it that got you into, the idea for these books dealing with specifically E.T. and the Native Americans in ancient times versus some of the other topics you might have wanted to cover?
Well, actually, I was working on a historically based fiction book about Henry Hudson and the Mohicans when he went up the Mohicanatuck, which they ended up calling the Hudson River. And it was historically based fiction. I started it while I was a professor at Bard College, visiting professor for a couple of years. And I couldn't get a literary agent. I couldn't get anyone to look at it, and it was actually a really great book, I thought. But I couldn't even get an agent. So I thought,